Welcome to another episode of Millennial Investing Explained. Here's today's question. Let's start with talking about what you believe is the best way for millennials and new investors to get started investing. Should they focus on 401ks through their employer, or maybe an individual retirement account, also known as an IRA, or a traditional brokerage account, or maybe something else?
Yeah, I think most millennials at this point are, in the workforce. And hopefully, if you're in the workforce, you have a company that sponsors a retirement plan. I think that's the easiest way to get started. Making sure, number one, that you've eliminated all that high interest debt so you don't have anything too terribly troublesome over your head. But as long as you've done that and you've got a job, I say sign up for your 401k plan. And if you don't have a 401k plan at work, you can certainly open up an IRA with just a traditional brokerage and then have part of your paycheck just distributed into that IRA or contributed in that IRA every pay period. That's getting you started really investing because you're looking so far out with a retirement plan. This is setting you up for success 30, 40 years down the road. And that's really how we view investing at the Motley Fool to begin with. So yeah, I think doing something just as simple as an employer plan or doing it on your own is a good way to get started.
Not only can you get free money if your company has an employer's match, but also by investing in a retirement account, it forces you to think long term.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of people feel like at that age, maybe they're not making as much money as they would like, and that you really can't afford at this time to put something aside. But I'm telling you, you can't afford not to do it. And I've seen it just time and time again. If you get yourself set up for it and you start contributing, you'll adapt. You have a little bit less you're taking home maybe, but you'll figure out a way to adapt to that. It really is important to be thinking down the road because, you got to figure out a way to take care of yourself. And certainly investing is one way to do that.
And if you really start at the beginning, once you're a few months into it, you're used to that new check. So it won't even seem any different to you.
You're right. And hopefully down the road, you're getting a raise sooner or later. And it gets easier as you get older. But you're right. At a young age, it's difficult to maybe see the forest for the trees, but you will adapt very quickly. I'm glad you said that was so easy, even for you to get into that mindset.
I have to say, I was very, very lucky. I was able to get a job at a local credit union as soon as I graduated high school. And essentially, I worked that job throughout college. And that's how I paid my way through college. But ultimately, what I was doing at that credit union was I was a loan officer. And so when I started there, one of the things that they required was for us to go through a training program. And part of that training program was about financial literacy. They wanted us to make sure that we got our finances in order and that make sure that we really had good financial literacy, because if we're going to be working with people's money, they wanted to make sure that we had our money handled appropriately. And so one of the things they talked about was investing for retirement. And so for me, I was only 18 at the time. I was just coming out of high school. I was the beginning years of my college career, and I was living at home. And so I didn't really have too many bills. And I was putting 60 to 70% of my income into my 401k. Now, of course, I wasn't making a ton of money at the time, but still 60 to 70% of my income was going into my 401k. So I was super lucky to learn that very early on and really start to think long-term just from the very beginning of my career and really get started early.
Oh, yeah, that's terrific. Man, I tell you, it's amazing how you have a job doing something like that and how much you learn about how stuff works, right? And I worked in lending. I worked in insurance. All of that before I went to the Fool. And I tell you, it really gives you a lot of exposure as to how stuff just works. And to your point about financial literacy, you either figure out a way to learn it through, the jobs that you have, or you're fortunate enough to have learned it in school or through your parents or something. But most people, unfortunately, just don't get that exposure to the financial literacy that they need.
Yeah, although that job was little in the grand scheme of things, it had a huge impact on my life. And I really think it has changed my life forever. That's all for this episode of Millennial Investing Explained. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get even more free content.